Hello, and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast, a collection of stories that point to purpose. I'm Brandon, and I have an awesome life, but that's not special because you do too. In every episode of This Awesome Life, we'll talk to a friend, we'll listen to their story, and we'll hear about the moments in which God has shown up in their life and pointed them forward in their calling. Today, we're talking to my friend, Tiffany Wasson. Tiffany is an author, a speaker, a drummer, and a homeschool mom. Today, Tiffany and I talk about finding purpose at home. It's an incredible conversation in which she and I talk about how to navigate the difficult questions we have for God. We talk about figuring out what we're made for, and we even talk about escaping the guilt that can come with pursuing our own dreams. So let's dive in, explore some stories, and celebrate this awesome life. Well, hey everyone, like I said, I am here with Tiffany Wasson. Tiffany is an author, a speaker, a homeschool mom, and I'm sure a long list of other awesome things that she does. So excited about today's conversation. Before we jump into it, Tiffany, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some things that you're excited about that you've got going on right now?
Okay, well, you did name a few. I'm an author, a homeschool mom. I also do photography. I write books on my spare time, and I drum a little bit, which is fun. Yeah,
that's fun.
I'm not like an excellent drummer, but yeah. So we are involved in a lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, our kids
you practice drums during nap time, or?
Well, so my kids are 14 and 12 now. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so they don't. They don't nap usually, and
fair.
But they're also in that weird teenage phase where they're
it's
sleeping
gonna
in
come
later.
back. Yeah.
And they want to nap. So
fair enough. That's cool. Yeah. Man, so exciting. I know that we talked a little bit leading up to today's episode, and my heart in this conversation, I've been so excited about like just getting to sit down and talk to somebody that does homeschool, and you have other things going on, but a pretty cool story about how God led you to being a homeschool mom. And I'm super excited to hear it. And I know that today that there's somebody listening that needs to know that, man, there's purpose in that. And there's purpose in being at home with the family and with the kids. So yeah, I'm super, super excited about the story. I'm going to let you jump in. Just tell us kind of how God led you that way, and how you find purpose in what you're doing.
All right. So, I've been a Christian since I was 12, going on 13. I found Jesus and fell madly in love with him. And in ministry, I found a Christian radio station at a very young age. And I was able to work with them on and off for about 10 years. And I just loved the ministry of Jesus. I loved preaching the word. I loved teaching. I loved inspiring others to move forward with a relationship with him. And I met my husband, Jeremy, and fell madly in love with him. He was in the Navy, and I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. Like, he had to leave in a submarine. That was awkward. And
yeah.
And then we moved to Charleston. So we moved away from the lighthouse, which is the radio station.
Okay.
So we moved away from them, and that was heartbreaking because that was like my everything. And we moved to Charleston because he had to go to shore duty. And so we were there for like 3 years and kind of looked at each other and we're like, we're bored. What do we do now? And the next step was like have kids. So it checks out, right? It was like, look at each other. It's like, what do we do? We have kids.
Yeah.
And so, we also wanted him to be home, with babies and the pregnancy process. So he was going to be a lifer in the military. So this was like the time, to have children. And so we had a couple of beautiful boys, and I was working at the time when I was pregnant, but when I had them, I just really wanted to be home.
Yeah.
And so I obviously fell in love with my boys, and being with them. And my husband after that decided to get out of the military, which was kind of awkward because he was going to be a lifer.
Right.
But they were trying to send us to Guam. And we were like, with a 3-month-old, that's just not going to check out. And he was like, my kids are not going to know who I am,
Yeah.
So we moved to Augusta, Georgia, and I still really missed ministry and still really missed preaching the word and teaching and being outside of the home. So much so that like being home was almost like a torture. Like I love my family and I love my kids, but it was like I knew that I was made for something more.
Yeah.
But like the schools around here, you know, where we were kind of a, you know, the elementary school is great, but like moving after that, they're kind of a, you know, a little rocky. So
yeah, I hear you.
We decided in pre-K to homeschool my oldest, and the youngest was still in diapers.
Yeah.
But man, I was ready to homeschool. I was ready to, like, I had all the school supplies.
Yeah.
You would have thought I was teaching like 20 kids, because we had our schoolroom ready. We had all the books, the curriculum. I mean, he was 4, like seriously, like all y'all really needed to do was color and stuff. But we butt heads like nobody's business.
You in the
4-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it was destroying our relationship, which didn't make any sense, but it truly was. So honestly, we put him back in school.
Okay.
And he was there until 2nd grade. And we started noticing, and teachers started noticing him struggling with handwriting and different things. And so we did some testing and realized that he had dysgraphia and dyslexia at the time. And so I think that's why we butted heads in pre-K.
Okay. That makes sense.
Because it's like, just write an A. And he couldn't, do it. Yeah. I mean, now looking back, it's like yelling at a 4-year-old to write. It's awful. I was a horrible human being.
Yeah, nobody else does that ever.
Nobody else
it's
does
just
that.
you. Yeah.
It's just me. And so, like, we went to the special ed teacher, like the person over everything. And, we discussed what things they could do to help him. And the head person was like, honestly, with what he has, we can help him, but he might get lost in the mix. Like he's just going to get swept under the rug.
Man.
Because like with kids like that, they'll be really high in an area, but low in an area, and then they average out. And so they don't need the help that they think they need. And so it's a really big struggle. So over the summer, I was playing with my kids, and something became a teaching moment in that moment. Okay. I can't remember exactly what it was, but God whispered in my spirit, like, you're going to homeschool your kids. And I laughed, and I was like, no, I'm not.
I'm sorry, wrong number.
Yeah. First of all, wrong number. First of all, did you not see how this went last time?
Yeah.
I was not made for this. Like, I was made to put my kids in school, be in full-time ministry. I was not interested in homeschooling our kids at all. And I went to my husband thinking that he was going to be on my side. Because why not?
You shouldn't do that. You're right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. This went terrible last time.
Right.
And but being the supportive, God-loving husband he is, he said, well, if God, is calling you to do this, then we need a homeschool. Man, I cried for like 2 weeks. I was not interested. I really struggled with the idea. I didn't want my relationship with our kids to be messed up because I'm a perfectionist. So, thinking with a public school mindset and like doing things how we think they should be done. Yeah. I really, really struggled with the idea, but throughout the summer, I knew it's what we were supposed to do. Like anytime I would try to do anything else, it was like, God was like, okay, honey, you know what you're doing. Like, you're being the crazy avoider. You're not listening, and he was so gentle with it though, so we didn't know what to do because it was very last minute, like during the summer where I was like, okay, fine, I surrender, whatever. So we did a free like public school online program. And our oldest was in 3rd grade, and in 3rd grade they get so mmany new things. Yeah. And like so many. And what we don't realize is most parents don't realize they get the same kind of stuff 4th grade and 5th grade. Mm-hmm. But in 3rd grade, we were pushing and like getting upset. The kids still to this day have nightmares over that program because they were like, we never saw the sun. Yeah. Like we were always in front of the computer. And for a 3rd grader and kindergartner to say that, that's like really sad. Right. Yeah. But, we have just been on this journey of homeschool and figuring out what works for us. And so the first year was online. The second year, we kind of built our own curriculum, like conglomerate of different things and pulled from different directions. And then the 3rd year, we found classical conversations. So we started doing that. And now we've been homeschooling 6 years in a row. And I feel like we have found a rhythm. So it's taken some time.
Right.
But I'm very thankful that God was gentle with me and still gentle with me to this day, because there are still moments that I'm like, I'm not doing enough. Are they going to be ready for the real world?
Right.
Are we doing the right thing? And those questions and concerns like always come up in my spirit.
Yeah.
But when you see aha moments and the fruit of your kids getting it, it makes it worth it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I love that story. And it's so like, I think the first thing that kind of jumps out at me, there was a moment you said, you're telling God, I'm not made for this.
Right.
Right. And, it's funny. I think a lot of us have been in a place where we've been like, I'm not made for this. And he's like, right, go on and tell the person who made you what you're made for. So how did you navigate that in was it just like kicking and screaming and powering through? Did you come to a place where you were at peace with it? Like, what did that process look like going from I'm not made for this to we are homeschooling our kids like day one?
Honestly, I entered into it kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
And I think just through the process and the journey, like him showing me that I was made for it, and it's funny because in high school, originally I was a part of the teacher apprenticeship program.
Okay.
So I went to, it was a work program. So I would go to school.
Yeah.
I would go to an elementary school and like be a paraprofessional for a teacher. And so then I would go to the radio station or, work there too. So I would do different things, but it's just funny how God takes things in full circle.
Yep.
It's like, you were going to school to be a teacher, and then it became,
that.
I wanted to teach.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. What are you talking about? But back then everybody was being a teacher. So there were no jobs,
Yeah.
So I was like, this isn't for me. And my degree changed like 4 times. It,
Gotcha.
went to being youth pastor, and then it went to psychology, and that was really depressing. And then my mentor at the station, she was like, listen, ministry is on your heart. Just do something practical so that you have a degree and you can use it anywhere you go. And so I did business, but just looking at all the things that he's given me the ability to do throughout my life, it's like you were made to teach and encourage and inspire people and mostly children, like 12 to 18 is kind of like my jam,
Yeah.
And, yes, middle school, high school students.
Yeah.
But he was starting to show me that if I can't even minister to my own children and inspire them and encourage them and lead my home, I mean, obviously my husband's the lead in the home, but lead my children to know Jesus, then I had no business ministering outside of the home.
Man.
And I just started to recognize that they are, amazing creations. They are made in his image, and I just thought because I was a Christian, they would know Jesus. And he started to show me like, no, like they are your disciples. Yeah. And it is your job to lead them to know me. And we have just had so much fun and so many amazing conversations about who God is and who Jesus is and how we can honor him with our life. And just all the different things that he has given us, like Bible time in the morning that, most families may not be able to get because they send their kids off to school. Right. And just the rich moments that we have had because of saying yes, Yeah.
It's crazy to think that the thing about my kids are going to love Jesus because I love Jesus. My kids go to a Christian school, and my daughter's always inviting her friends to the youth group, and I'm shocked at how many of them actually come and aren't connected to a church. And I'm like, you'd think that they're going to Christian school, they know who Jesus is, they love Jesus, they hear about it at school for sure, and yet they come home and they're not connected. And so that's been an eye-opening moment for me of just because the label's on the door, it doesn't mean that that's the fruit that's being produced. And so I think for you to recognize that in your own children is awesome, and then utilize okay, we're gonna lean into this. So that's amazing. Good encouragement to always see your family as your first ministry,
Your
right?
first ministry.
Yeah.
And
there's been
it's
a couple
so hard
of times.
because growing up as Christians, it's like we think, you know, the Great Commission, like go out to the world and preach the good news.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, but he told them to start at home, you know, I mean,
Right.
home to them, you know, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah, because that's the hard part about the context of that scripture, right? Is like Judea, just Samaria, the ends of the earth. And we read all these foreign countries, but they were there, you know, like they were there. It'd be like for you, it's like Augusta and Georgia and the ends of the earth, right? Or for me, it's like Omaha and Nebraska and the ends of the earth, which the ends of the earth are way farther away from Nebraska than anywhere else.
Right.
Because we're so stuck. No, I'm kidding. But
I mean,
yeah, no,
are.
that's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, no kidding. And so, yeah, even for me, there's been times when I've been like gut punched by the fact that, hey, you need to start your ministry at home, because I'll get these crazy ideas about like what we should do as a family or vision, or like, we're going to do this. And my wife's like, that's a terrible idea. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I can't get you on board with the vision, why would I think that I can get strangers on board with this vision? And so that's become kind of like one, minister at home, lead at home. But man, for me, it's been so cool to like, you know, we pour all this in, you know, I'm in full-time ministry. And so for me, I pour a lot of effort and energy into volunteers and people, but I should be pouring that same effort and energy, if not more, actually more, at home first. And so, yeah, I just love that. I think that it sounds like you're like free to really do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so,
and that's the beautiful thing about homeschool, is that there is a real freedom there.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, it was like my prison.
Right.
And then realizing that it's such a place of freedom.
Yes.
And, you know, being able to do the things that we do. I mean, thinking that, man, it's great that my husband has this job, you know. I mean, it's hard sometimes being a single family income, you know, earner, but being able to push through that and then realizing the fruit and the joy in it and the process has just been, it's been pretty awesome. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you got to that place, right? Like you said, you kind of went into it kicking and screaming. You figured out like, okay, this is what I was made for. I've found purpose in this, and life has been perfect ever since.
Oh, no. There have been so many times I've wanted to quit, which is why my book is called I Quit, Confessions of an Imperfect Homeschool Mom.
Nice.
I've wanted to quit many times, but again, he's been very gracious in the process.
Yeah.
Like, even to the point that I'm like, I mean, there have been days where I'm like, God, I can't do this anymore. I tell my husband I can't do this anymore. And Jeremy will say things like, well, okay, we put him in school and then you go off to do other things. And then when it fails because we're not doing what God's called us to do, you know, then what are we going to do then?
Oh, wow.
You know?
That's very, very truthful and honest.
Yes, very truthful and honest. Let me tell you, that man, I love him to death, because sometimes he looks at me with so much love and he's like, why are we having this conversation? Because you know where it's going to end.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm like, sometimes I just need you to hear me, you know, like today was really hard, you know? And so, no, it has not always been easy. And man, I'm telling you though, if you stick with what God's told you to do, you will see the fruit. And it's hard when you like plant things and you water and I mean, even if the water are your tears, like you're constantly weeping over like the situation. You know, my boys have grown so much. They know a lot about the Lord and God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and they know a lot about people and, you know, how to have good conversations with somebody across the table that may not believe the way that they believe. And, you know, and the whole thing with school, it's amazing to think about, like, yes, math is important and writing is important and all these things are important. But if we are not focusing on the total person, and, you know, we have people that are brilliant, but are crappy human beings. Yeah. And
really smart little jerks.
Yeah. Smart little jerks. I mean, and we're Christian, we love Jesus. Like, what are we really doing? You know?
Right. Yeah.
But no, it has not always been easy. There have been times I wanted to quit. But now our kids are at an age and at a point. Well, I'll say this, my oldest, like, he loves homeschool now. Yeah. A few years ago, it was not the case. Like I mean, but it was all school. Like, he hated school. And now he is starting to love it, you know, and starting to
it only took you 10 years.
Yeah. It only took me, you know, forever. Now my youngest, like, I feel like he hates all things school. And so he's in that, he's 12, almost 12. And so he's in that, oh my goodness, I hate all things school. And I said, well, the paper you're fighting me on right now, if I send you to public school, you're going to have like 8 of those. So, you know, jokingly, I mean, I told him, I said, listen, I do not want to make any decision based out of fear. I'm not trying to make you afraid of school, because if the Lord calls us to do that, like, we will do that, you know, like, I would like to homeschool my kids till they graduate. But if God's like, being it's time, like they're ready, you know, to do something different, then I want to be open to that, you know? But
Think you'd go back kicking and screaming too?
You know, I might cry the entire time because I'm already starting having like visions of them going off to college.
Right.
And I'm not okay. Like, because I mean, my oldest is going into 9th grade. And so like the end of high school is like here, in my opinion. Like we are there.
Yeah. You're getting close.
Yeah. It goes by really fast. I mean, you remember high school?
Yeah. I mean, try not to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there were some really hard times in high school. But, I mean, it does go by really fast.
It does.
And so I'm having this, like, crisis of, oh, my goodness, did I spend any time with my kids at all? Because they're about to leave, and I'm going to be stuck here by myself.
That's funny. That's crazy. Isn't it funny sometimes how we, like, all of a sudden, like, we hold so tightly to the things that we told God we didn't even want, you know?
Yes.
You're like, you can't have this back. And he's like, well, you didn't want it in the first place. And you're like, yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
But that's awesome.
Let's rewind it. I remember it so differently.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. You talked about like God being gentle with you in the process, right? Mm-hmm. Like as you struggled through all these decisions and fighting him, and yet he was gentle in the process. What did that look like?
It's hard to say. I think like even through the tears, you could like feel him talking to you like it's going to be okay. He would bring people in my path, you know, to encourage me and spur me.
Nice.
You know, it's funny because my stepmom, she was a teacher for forever.
Okay.
And Jeremy's dad was a history teacher too.
Gotcha.
In high school. So in the beginning, you know, when we told them we were going to homeschool, they were like, what are you doing? You know, like this is a terrible idea. And now, you know, they're like, just keep your kids home.
Yeah.
You know, like this has gone really well. And so I think just throughout the process, you know, speaking through my husband, speaking through different people, my mom, you know, always encouraged us throughout the journey, you know, just, you're doing a good job, you know, just love on them. And so I just think, even though not wanting it, like he'd always bring someone to encourage and spur us to that decision. I mean, just like when Moses, you know, like, I don't want to do this and I can't speak. And Aaron's already on the way, you know? Like I knew this was going to happen. Like he's already on the way. Yeah. So, just through that, like he has shown up in so many different ways for us, to keep us on that path. Yeah. And keep us from quitting.
No, and that speaks to like God's timing and stuff. I find that every time I get to a place where I'm like, that's it, I'm done, I want to quit. Like somebody will show up in my life and be like, hey, you've made an impact. And I'm like, I'm so mad at you right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I got a text from a family yesterday that's on vacation, and the like 5-year-old's like, she just had to say hi to you because she didn't see you this week. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
That is
you know
so
what I mean?
Cute.
It's just things like that, like they're always like right when you need them, and so I think that's pretty cool. I know you mentioned like your husband is a good voice for that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So outside of like those like momentary encouragements, as you talked about, like wrestling with these hard questions and stuff like that, how did you navigate that and come not just to the answers that you wanted or needed, but the ones that were right, you know, and put you on the right path?
Yeah, I think outside of, you know, my husband, just realizing it's been this constant over and over of God saying like, just trust me. Yeah. You know, just trust me in this process, because as a homeschool mom or any parent, you know, you're always contemplating, am I doing enough? Right. Are they going to be enough? Are they going to be ready for the real world? Are they, you know, are they where they, you know, quote, should be according to society? Sure. And it's this constant comparison of me comparing myself to other moms, or, you know, you get on Instagram and all the bloggers and all the, just all the different things. It's, you know, am I doing enough? Are they growing enough? Are they going to fall behind? Like, what does that even mean? You know, and it's just been this constant, like, just trust me, you know, trust me to lead them. Like, I'm not just here for you. I'm also here for your kids.
Yeah.
And I've also had to realize, you know, I was so sold on being in full-time ministry and different things that, you know, God has shown me that it isn't just about me anymore. You know, it's not about my ministry or this or my husband's ministry. You know, it's about each of us in the family, finding our calling, and trying to figure out, well, what does my oldest want to be, and how can we get him to that point? You know, where is my youngest at? Like right now, he wants to be a child's dentist, a professional basketball player, and a pastor. So
all at the same time.
All at the same time. So that's where he's at. My oldest wants to be an Imagineer for Disney. Nice. And that's been pretty solid for a couple of years. And so just looking at it like, hey, you know, trust me in the process, and humbling me a lot, you know, that it's not just about me. Yeah. That it's about all of us. And what our calling is as a whole family. Like, how can we, as the Wasson clan or group, you know, encourage other people outside of these walls? Like, what does that look like? That's good. Yeah. So I know you've got a lot. It hasn't been a lot past that. I mean, other than
and I think that's not just
like using
answer,
other
but probably
people.
The answer, you know.
It's the answer. But you know, husband, God, and you know, people coming in at the right time, like you said, when you need them. Absolutely. And then when you feel like you are screwing up so bad, like a parent or someone will come to you and say, "Man, like your kids are really great kids." Oh wow. Like they and I've been able to watch them in church, and like my oldest loves kids. And my youngest, he just is going into 6th grade, and so now he can finally serve in the church. Right. And the day that he went up in 6th grade, they were having the meeting where you learned about the church and where you can serve and all this stuff, and like he wanted to go. Yeah. So as a 6th grader wanting to pour back into kids already, it's like, okay, God, I see it. This hasn't been me. This has been all you, like working the process and just this journey of, you know, running after my kid's heart. And, and it's really, really cool to see. Yeah. That's so awesome. Cool. And so you have these other things. You mentioned the book before. Mm-hmm. And so as you're doing these other things, right? Like you're a homeschool, like you got these things, but you've got these other projects. And I, you know, like I told you earlier, I just finished up writing a book. I know that you don't just do that, you know, in the spare time. It's like, well, I could watch an episode of Friends or I could write a book, you know, it's like, It's not like that, right? It takes time and effort and energy and planning and tears and all that kind of stuff. Tears. How did you fit it in? And in the process, this, you know, I think even more so, like, how did you navigate the time away? One of my friends asked me, like, when you're promoting this book, you got to tell people why you took time away from your family to write this book. And I was like, I didn't. I just woke up earlier than them. And you know what I mean? So like my wife and I joke a lot about the things I've done while she's asleep, like got a college degree and wrote a book and things like that. But I know for you, like there's got to be some of that balance, right? And so, you know, and for me there was too. There's been plenty of times when I'm like, God's writing right now, but how do you kind of navigate that? How do you find the time? And then how do you navigate all the kind of feelings that come with that? Yeah. That's a very big question. It's a lot. No, you're fine. No, I love it. It's great. Yeah. So in the process of homeschooling, I was very big on not wanting to lose myself. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, I felt guilty about that. But again, my husband has been very encouraging, and he said, you know, like even yesterday, again, it's so crazy we were having this conversation today, because yesterday I was just at a breaking point, like spinning all these plates. I have all these things going on, and I was ready to give all that up. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I'm taking focus off of my kids to do photography or to do this. And, you know, and he looked at me and he said, what are we teaching our children, you know, if you don't continue to go after your dreams, you know, and your goals? And it's definitely a balance, because you don't want to push your family aside, because you do that, it's like you're teaching them, well, you don't mean enough to me, like this is more important. But I do believe there's a balance to reach your goals and to not lose yourself. Because one day your kids are going to leave and, and you're going to be, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, or who are you going to be? So like the stay-at-home mom who is sitting there like, how do I reach my goals and my dreams in the process? I think like you said, you have to make time for that and energy for that. But also realizing there's like seasons for that. So for example, when I've written 2 books, and so I've written both of those while homeschooling my kids, and that would be me getting up early to do that. Or I'm a night owl, so I would stay up late. Or when my kids were younger, when they were taking naps, I would work on it, and just realizing that even if it was just 15 minutes a day, if I was, touching that or working on that goal, then that's okay. Or, if you feel like, well, I want to work on this business while staying at home and homeschooling, it's, just do it in a way that offers grace to yourself and your family. And because again, they are going to be gone one day. And I don't think it's wrong, to dream and to do other things, but just making it a priority. But also realizing that sometimes those dreams are going to be on the back burner. Yeah. Like the only thing I've done in the past year is promote the second book. And I wrote the back cover to another book that I want to write. And so this season, I haven't done a lot of writing. Yeah. And so realizing that there are going to be seasons where you're working on your dream and your goals, and there's going to be seasons that you're not. I mean, it's just like managing your house. Like there are some days your house is chaos, and I mean, there's piles of laundry and dishes, and then there's other times that your house is clean. So realizing that when you're juggling those dreams, that like sometimes you're working on them more than others. Sometimes it needs to take a back burner because you're realizing that your family is being pushed aside. And so it's definitely a balancing act. Yeah. And then giving yourself grace when you're not perfect at it. But like if you have this dream to be a communicator, asking people to do those things like, hey, I really have this dream to be a communicator, to be a preacher or whatever. It's like while you're homeschooling and while you're doing what God's called you to do, it's like, how can you work on that craft? Right. While still doing what God's called you to do without pushing what he's told you to do first out of the picture. Yeah. No, that's really good. So that's awesome. Really good. Cool. Tell us briefly, tell us about the books. Like, what are they about? Where can we find them? Okay. The first book is Running Mascara, Embracing the Beauty of an Imperfect Church. Yeah. It's a long title, I know. It wasn't going to be that long in the beginning, but that's where I felt like God put me. So no, that's good. Yeah, so I've dealt with perfectionism my entire life, which is why I struggled to homeschool, because I expected everything to be perfect when we did it, and it was not. No. But the first book is definitely about embracing the imperfect sides of ourselves, because I've been a Christian since I was 12, 13, and I felt like I had to be perfect for Jesus to love me. And it took me a really long time into my adult life to realize that he runs to the mess, not away from it. Yeah. And so that's what that one is about, and just encouraging people like, hey, I mean, yes, we can strive to be like Jesus, but there's always going to be an area that we're slipping, right? Right. And then it was also a warning and not encouragement. No, that's not the word, but a challenge to the church. Yeah. Because I feel like we lock arms together, like this is our Jesus and you don't deserve him, and we push people out. Yeah. And it's like, whoa, like that's not what it's meant to be. We're supposed to like drag people, like as many people as possible to him, right? Absolutely. So that's what that one's about. And the second one is I Quit, Confessions of an Imperfect Homeschool Mom. And that one is definitely, it's a little shorter because I intended it for the crazy busy homeschool mom. Yeah, for sure. But it has like our personal journey in each chapter. Like the first chapter is I did not want to homeschool our kids. Oh, okay. So it goes into that. And then it goes into, I have like some prayers and scriptures, and then a section called like fill up your bookshelf, so things that like you can put in your back pocket for a rainy day. Yeah. And then a place to like write and journal. Cool. So awesome. both of those, you can find them on Amazon.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool.
So
We'll put links to both of them in the notes so that if you guys want, you can find them real easy. Sound great. I highly recommend. Check them out. Very cool. Hey, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you being here, being on the podcast. Anything like as we wrap up, like, the old school final thoughts,
Final thoughts
that you'd say, especially to like someone in the same situation. I'm sitting at home, I'm home with my kids. I know I'm supposed to be here, but I'm struggling to find my own purpose or keep who I am at the forefront. I think you spoke to those both really, really well. So yeah, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that just not letting guilt set in, because each person in your home has a purpose,
right?
And I think that your kids seeing you go after your dreams is important. It's important for you because you don't want to just sit in your home and like think that this is where my dreams go to die.
Right? Yeah, no one wants that.
Yeah, so just listening to God and trying to allow him to speak to you and not feeling guilty when you do go after your dreams.
Yeah.
As long as you, like you said, your first ministry is taken care of, like it is okay to go after your dreams.
Yeah.
And then in the midst of all that, like giving grace, in the process, because nothing we do is going to go perfectly.
Yeah.
So, you may start going after your dreams and then it's like crazy things happen or you don't feel like it's going to work or, whatever. But
yeah,
just giving that ebb and flow of life and enjoying the journey and the process and just realizing, if God wants it to happen, like no man can stop it.
Yeah.
And if it's not meant to be, he's going to be gentle with that and show you where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what that is, my brother always encouraged me, to be a moving ship. Like, if you're so anchored to something, then God can't move you, So just do anything, do something, that makes you happy. If you're not sure what that is, just do something. And God is going to let you know, like, no, this is, what you're supposed to do outside of, your kids or your home and just enjoy the journey. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good. Well, hey, thank you so much for being our guest today. It's been a really good conversation. A lot for me personally to unpack and remember, very encouraging. And then I know, and I'm just excited about this because I know that there are people sitting where you were years ago trying to figure out, A, is this the right decision at all? And then B, was I made for this? And, how to get through those hard times. And so I just thank you for that encouragement today. It's been awesome.
And thank you.
What an incredible conversation with Tiffany. I know that I was so personally encouraged by some of the things that she said. The truth that she brought to this conversation was amazing. One of those things being that when she finally was able to find purpose in being a stay-at-home mom or homeschool mom, she said, I see it. Like, I see it now. And I think it was amazing to recognize that sometimes in order to see these things, we have to be looking for them. I asked her some really pointed questions about where do you find this purpose? And she's talking about, oh, well, when someone brings me encouragement or when someone comments about my kids or something like that. She says, in those moments, I see it. And I just think it's amazing that the saying goes, we find what we're looking for. You find what you're looking for. If you're looking for purpose in what you're doing and what you have in your hands, you will find it. She sees it because she's looking for it. I think the second big thing that stuck out to me was the encouragement from her not to lose yourself. And I know that can be easy at home if we're stay-at-home parents or homeschooling our kids or something like that. It can be easy to lose ourselves, to get wrapped up in what we're doing. But that goes beyond stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads or homeschool parents. It goes into anything that we're doing. I think as humans, we often run the risk of losing ourselves in what we're doing. It's easy to say, oh, I am a pastor, or I am a teacher, or I am a businessman, or I am a barista. But it might be what you do, but it's not who you are. And so it's so easy to lose ourselves in a title. And I want to encourage you, like, don't do that. Don't lose yourself in anything that you're doing. Lose yourself in who God has called you to be. That's who we should be losing ourselves in. We should be losing ourselves in Him, in our Creator, which is just so amazing. And She talked about one of the ways that she did that during the journey when the times were busy. She said, I'd write still, and maybe it was only 15 minutes a day. Maybe it was only 15 minutes of outlining something or anything like that. 15 minutes is enough. I have a mentor that says, as far as writing goes, sometimes 100 words is enough. Sometimes 100 words is enough. If you can sit down and put in some effort, put in some time to elevating your craft, it's time well spent. And so I know that we're busy people. That is just the nature of the world that we live in. It's busy. 15 minutes is enough. Continue working on your dreams. Continue pursuing who God's called you to be. Continue honing that craft and getting better and better at it. You can find 15 minutes to pursue who God's called you to be. I know that. And then respect the ebbs and flows of life. For me, there are seasons where I can spend more time on my dreams and on my passions than in others. There are seasons when I can sit down and write 5 to 10 blog posts in one sitting, or record 3 or 4 of these podcast episodes in one sitting. And then there are times when I spend weeks without writing or weeks without a podcast episode. And that's okay, because I've done the work in the seasons that I can. Our seasons, our time, it's going to ebb and flow all the time. And so, man, when you have the time to sit down and really, really spend time on your craft, take it. And then when it goes the other direction, when you don't have as much time, respect that and give yourself grace. She said the same thing. You have to give yourself grace. And that's important. Like, yes, giving yourself grace is important, but you also have to give grace to the people around you. I think for her, as she talked about some of the struggles in homeschooling her younger son, just figuring out how to give more grace in that season was a big lesson. And so give grace, give a lot of it, actually. Give so much grace. Grace by the truckload. Actually, the first episode of this podcast is about that. So check that one out if you haven't listened to it yet. Incredible conversation about giving grace to yourself and to others. Sometimes in those busy seasons, it's grace that will get us through. So again, I was just so encouraged by all of it. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours just about the things and the lessons that I took out of that story, but I hope that you are blessed by it as well. Super thankful for Tiffany and what she's doing in her home, and then beyond that as well, as she pursues who God's called her to be. Thanks for listening to This Awesome Life, a collection of stories that point to purpose. To stay connected with This Awesome Life, check out the show notes. That's where you're going to find the This Awesome Life blog. You'll find my newsletter down there, and you're also going to find all the information about my book, Magic in the Mug. That's another collection of stories that also point to purpose. We're going to look through the lens of the process that coffee goes through to get from a seed all the way to your cup, and the lessons that we can learn along the way. Coffee has so much to teach us if we just respect the process, and that is what our lives are as well. They're a process. But at the end, if we walk through the process well, just like that perfect cup of coffee, you're going to turn into something beautiful. Check out all the information down below. Now, additionally, you'll also be able to find my social media links if you'd like to connect with me there. I'd love to connect with you in that space. You're also going to be able to find all the ways that you can get connected with Tiffany and find her books. Again, I highly encourage that you check those out, especially if you're wrestling with the purpose question. I believe, man, she speaks so well about how we can find purpose everywhere, in any moment, whether it's at home, at work, in our dreams, whatever. Man, our purpose is right there with us the whole time. Hey, if you love This Awesome Life, I'd love for you to take a minute and leave us a review. That just helps us get in front of other people who might be struggling with the same questions. We'd love to know that we're making a difference in that space. Hey, don't forget to like and follow this podcast so you never miss an episode. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on This Awesome Life.